All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the Rocky Top Insider Press Pass podcast. If you are watching on video, no video today. We have a little bit of cramped quarters, but Ryan, we have been doing video all day long. We got video coming up in 30 minutes. A lot of good activity with our friends over at WATE today. In case you got to see the pregame show that they were doing, or in case you want to go and watch the, I believe it's going to be the 6 o'clock news. Now this is probably going to get posted afterwards. But that's one of the fun partnerships that we have going into the season is with WATE. So a little bit of a change from the norm today. This will still be on YouTube in case you're watching there. But for the rest of the season, we will have plenty of video for you in these post-game shows. But for today, again, we're in cramped quarters, but with a pretty nice view. How are you doing, my friend? It's been a long day. This is, of course, the one, the only Ryan Sylvia.
I'm doing good. You mentioned the WATE partnership. We did a hit with them before the game, got down on the field. That was a lot of fun. However, I think I could not have been much more wrong. I got the winner right. I got kind of the spread of the game right. But I was sitting there saying, hey, Tennessee's going to have to rely on their defense. They're going to have to sit back. Probably going to run the ball a lot. Don't expect Joey Aguilar fireworks because it's his first game. And pretty quickly, you kind of got the sense that Tennessee wanted to establish that this offense can be dynamic again. They want to take advantage of those things. So I guess overall wasn't horribly wrong, but how Tennessee got the job done, I was pretty far off. And I think if you're a Tennessee fan, it's a little exciting to see that, especially that deep ball to Braylon Staley.
Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be plenty of excitement, and some of it reserved from certain sections of the fan base, and I think that's fair because it is game one, of course. But you're right. I think that we had an idea about the way that Tennessee might have been able to go into this game, and some of the things might have been different along the way. I mean, when you're talking about the offense, just the first thing that stands out to me is 493 total yards, right? 247 passing yards, 246 rushing yards. It's hard to get more balanced than that. It's hard to be more 50-50 ball. What was it, 3 straight passing plays to start out the game from Joey Aguilar? Am I right on that, or am I remembering that right? I think you're right. I think early in the game they showed that this offense can do things in different ways, that obviously they were going to rely on the run game plenty. But when you look at a Josh Heupel offense and ultimately what it wants to be something where the run game sets up the pass game and the pass game complements the run game. This is Syracuse. Tennessee is going to face tougher competition at some point later in the year, of course. But I think as far as being balanced goes, they did a pretty darn good job at that here today against the Orange.
And you saw that kind of from drive to drive as well. There are some drives, obviously, when you get that chunk play, that certainly helps make the pass game look a lot stronger. But there was drives where it seemed like they went to the air a lot more, whether that was extending things with Chris Brasler, Mike Matthews on third downs, or using the tight ends or different things like that. There were drives where the pass game seemed to be the feature aspect of it. There were also drives where, whether it was Star Thomas getting going or Peyton Lewis or Deshaun Bishop, they said, let's get to the ground game and let's run the football. So I thought that was interesting as well, where at the end of the day, it's pretty split, literally as close as you can, given it's an odd number for total yards, as close as you can get for the split on that. But it wasn't like it was run pass, or anything like that. Like they got into rhythms in the pass game and exploited that. They got into rhythms in the run game and exploited that. And overall, I think that's the sign of a healthy offense, is when you can go to just kind of multiple aspects like that, and ultimately that's a good way to get down the field consistently and to put up a crooked number like they did today.
Yeah, absolutely. 28 passing attempts from Joey Aguilar on the day, 40 rushing attempts from Tennessee's running backs and obviously quarterback combined. We thought that ultimately, the running game was going to be a valuable aspect of what this offense is, and I think you saw that today with Tennessee's three-headed monster that is Star Thomas, Deshaun Bishop, and Peyton Lewis. 92 yards and a score for Star, 82 yards and a score for Deshaun Bishop, and 38 yards for Peyton Lewis as well. Peyton Lewis, obviously the low man on that number, but I like the runs that he did have, and obviously that touchdown run of his, and he barreled his way into the end zone. That was a nice play right there. I think that's obviously going to be a strength of what Tennessee does this year, but again, if the passing game can look as dynamic at times as it did here today, that obviously opens up what Josh Heupel wants to do, and you saw a little bit of creativity, I thought, from Josh Heupel in the offense, some different formations, some different looks, and you can tell that there was really a lot of thought and effort kind of going there was a lot of thought and effort about what this offense could be and the ways that it could sort of evolve over the offseason. And this is the first game, right? We haven't seen all of it by any stretch, but I think as far as initial impressions go, this was a pretty good one.
Yeah, and when you look at the run game as well, two things that jump out to me. One is obviously the long of 47 for Deshaun Bishop, where he broke loose. Didn't have the getaway speed to get all the way there, but he finished that touchdown, or that drive with the touchdown anyway. And then Star Thomas had that long of 22. The I guess outlier there is the Peyton Lewis long of 8, but if you're consistently running the ball for 5 yards a carry, 4.8 yards per carry for him, like that's perfectly fine, right? Like that's going to get the job done. And it is that touchdown run that he had the first of the season for Tennessee, where he got stuffed short of the goal line, and he just powered through that linebacker.
Yeah, he did.
Like that is a great asset to have in your running back room, someone that can do that. I mean, you look at him and you see the size, but we haven't seen him necessarily have to do that against a powerful level opponent yet. And so I think that was really positive. The other thing that stood out was Joey Aguilar. I thought he ran the ball very well today. I thought that was a question in some ways. You heard about it, like, yeah, Joey, he can run a little bit. You watch the film from last year or the year before. Okay, he can run, but what is that actually going to look like at Tennessee when they're playing good teams? I mean, there was designed runs. There was obviously the option type of plays, but like there was a quarterback power in there as well. So they clearly like what he can do with his legs. He lowers his shoulder into guys. He's not afraid of contact. Got a little banged up at one point today and looked like he was maybe going to have to miss a drive, but got back on the field and didn't miss any snaps. So overall, not only did Joey Aguilar, I think, exceed or at least meet any expectations that anyone had for him in the pass game, but I think that's a very pleasant, maybe not surprise, but addition in the run game as well.
Yeah, when I was down there on the field doing the stand-up with Ryan Shumper, which, by the way, you can also go find on the Rocky Top Insider YouTube channel. I called him Joey Wheels, and he does have a little bit of giddy up to him. I think he's got some sneaky speed here and there, but maybe the better nickname is just Joey, I'll put my shoulder down and I'll try to hit somebody as I fall forward. And that was something that you saw in his tape at App State, and I think that, obviously there's an element to it that you want to keep your quarterback healthy, especially when you're talking about the shoulders or the side section or something like that. But I also think that's one of those things that gets an offense fired up, right? When you see your quarterback go out there and, be able to tuck the ball, be able to run towards the sideline and not just sort of, dance out. And yes, there's going to be times to slide, and you, again, the most important thing is the protection of their quarterback. Man, but when you can take a hit like that, when you can lay down a hit on your way going down and kind of fall forward into an extra couple of yards, I think that's something that gets the guys motivated around you. So he might not necessarily exactly be Joey Wheels. I don't think he's the fastest guy on the team, but he's Joey, I will pop somebody if I need to, Aguilar. And that is a fun little aspect of his game, and I think that's something that Josh Heupel and Joey Halzle can certainly work with as the season goes on. Yeah,
not to evoke the name of Diego Pavia, because I think a lot of Tennessee fans are a little sick of him after the Netflix series and what happened in his words and that, and then busting with the boys and saying they're going to run the state of Tennessee. But you see what it did for Vanderbilt when they had a quarterback who was gritty, who would put his shoulder down, who wasn't afraid to run the ball and take some contact. Like, it's pretty awesome, and you do see it. Like, the guys respect that. I think if there's a role for a pocket passer that you don't want to get touched much, but there's also a role for a guy like a Joey Aguilar. Maybe it's that JUCO in them. Both those guys coming from the JUCO scenes where they're just like, yeah, man, I'll run over you if I have to. I'll do anything to get this first down, this extra yard. It's that running back pad plus 2 mentality that Josh Heupel, Darrell Sims, and those guys talk about all the time, where the point of contact is not where the ball dies. You need to get like 2 more yards off that contact, fall forward, do all those different things. Seems like Joey Aguilar has it in him, and if he's going to throw the ball like he did today too, maybe not the most efficient, he finishes 57% completion percentage, 247 yards and 3 touchdowns. Rick, did you expect much more than that through the air? Because, you see murmurs maybe on social media, people like, to me, that was a great. You couldn't ask for much more from Joey Aguilar in Game 1 against Syracuse.
Yeah, and let's see, a couple of those drops maybe turn into passes. Maybe you're up at 18 of 28, I think it is, and maybe that raises it to somewhere closer to 60. If you're in the 60s, I think that's fair. But also, we talked about it throughout the offseason, and certainly I said this during the preseason, but this game ultimately was a good telling point about the starting point of what this team is. Mm-hmm. It is nowhere near what the finished product is going to be. But if this is the starting point, I think that's pretty good. And obviously, again, you saw the wide receivers sort of start to find their rhythm a little bit more. I do want to talk about Braylon Staley here in a minute. But as far as Joey Aguilar's passing goes, I think that if this is his starting point, 247 yards, three passing touchdowns, and being able to be mobile with the ball when he needs to, I think that's a great position. And I didn't think we saw anything get too risky. Again, Tennessee's going to face better competition later in the season, though. So,
yes.
we will hold. We will have some reservations about how we talk about this now. But yeah, I think you're right. I think some of those drops maybe turn to receptions that boost the numbers a little bit. But, I personally, I thought they were going to lean on the run game more. I know they still had 40 attempts on the ground. That's a ton. Our good friend Matt Reed, who does the previews, he was saying Tennessee would love to run the ball 50 times if they could. Well, Tennessee did want to find a couple more shots in the passing game, and I like certainly seeing that. But, again, if this is a starting point, I think that's a pretty darn good one. You look at the offensive line, David Sanders Jr., kind of a surprise as he wasn't able to go today. Josh Heupel said in his post-game press conference that injury occurred on Wednesday, just got a little bit banged up. I think they anticipate him to be back at some point soon. Certainly you don't want his first game to be against Georgia, so you would like, if you're a Tennessee fan, to see him play next week in the kind of the home opener, the primer game against, who is it, ETSU?
Yeah.
I'm going to say UTEP for some reason. Wrong four-letter acronym.
A couple years ago.
But I like what Tennessee's offensive line was able to do. Sam Pendelman being at the center. You had Wendell Moy and Sham Umarov on the insides. Then you had Lance Hurd and Jesse Perry on the outsides. Again, I'd imagine that we'll see David Sanders step back into that role when he is healthy, potentially next week against ETSU. But I thought Tennessee's line did a really, really nice job today, setting the tone for the trenches. And again, you can't necessarily compliment the running game if you're not complimenting certain parts of the offensive line as well. For having to put things together in the last couple of days, for having to have a new right tackle that I'm sure they kind of prepared for going into the season, I liked what I saw from that group. And obviously, if this is their starting point, I think they've got a pretty high ceiling as well and plenty of room to keep getting better and keep that momentum going.
I think it's a hats off to Jesse Perry for what he did.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not easy. He played tackle in high school. Most college offensive linemen, even when they slide into the interior once they get to college, most of them are tackles in high school. So there's some familiarity there, but he's been repping guard, and that's got to be tough to slide out. And I know they've worked him some at tackle in these camp sessions, just as this exact emergency type of situation. So it's not a completely foreign concept, but to actually go out there and do it, and to do it at a pretty good level, I thought that was a big deal for Tennessee. As a line, you don't give up a single sack. That's awesome for Tennessee, that you have 4 new faces, 1 returning starter, and one of the projected guys isn't ready to go, and you don't give up a sack on the day. That's great. There's only 3 tackles for loss. You got the run game established early in the game. You gave Joey Aguilar plenty of time to hit on some of those deep plays, or to really, you think about the one with Star Thomas. Does Joey Aguilar kind of have to create some magic and get out of the pocket and create something that's not there? Yeah, but at the same time, it's not like the pocket completely collapsed on him. It gave him the opportunity on a rep that maybe Lance Hurd, I think it was, would probably want back. He still did enough to let Joey Aguilar escape, and that is a big deal in its own right. So I thought the offensive line, you can't really complain too much about that either right now. There's things that obviously have to improve. It's not perfect. Same with Joey Aguilar and his passing. A couple balls started to sail on him a little bit, especially throwing out to the boundaries. A few different things here or there. A couple decisions that maybe he got away with that could have ended up being intercepted that weren't. So that wasn't perfect either. But overall, for the first game against the Syracuse team that is not going to be the best in the world, but is a Power 4 opponent who's coming off 10 wins a year ago, I think that was a very solid showing from the offensive line.
Yeah, and again, going back to the running game one more time, I'm looking at the Syracuse box score. Yassine Willis, I believe that's how you pronounce it, a talented tailback in his own right. He had 23 attempts. The backup, Nixon, had 9. Mm-hmm. That sort of reminds you of what a Dylan Sampson,
absolutely,
what's the word I'm looking for? Distribution looked like last year. You look at what Tennessee did this year, or this game. Star Thomas had 12, Deshaun Bishop had 11, Peyton Lewis had 8, and Aguilar had 6 runs of his own. Mm-hmm. A lot more balanced. And I think, again, with the running back game, with this offensive line, it's just going to be, it's kind of a toss-up about who we're going to be talking about in this post-game podcast each game. Who's got the hot hand, who, like Darrell Sims said during fall camp, just who had the best week going to practice. I think all these guys have the chance to have a breakout game at some point, but I think we're going to be talking about this running room with a lot of balance. Finishing up on the offensive side of things, Braylon Staley, I know it's one game. Plenty could happen to the rest of the season. he feels like one of Joey Aguilar's favorites out there to throw to. I know you had the 73-yard bomb of a touchdown, and that was a tremendous play, and he wasn't even the receptions leader, I believe, in this game. Chris Brazzell had 5, but it just felt like Braylon Staley is going to be a guy that Joey Aguilar looks to fairly frequently. What did you see from the receiving game today that you liked? What did you see from that position group overall?
Well, I really liked the top 3 guys in the room, and they were all good to go and healthy, which was also a question in its own right. Going into this day, considering they missed so much time at practice, what was Chris Brazzell and Braylon Staley particularly going to look like today? And there didn't seem to be much of a limitation. I mean, Chris Brazzell took a shot in the game and clearly didn't feel great after it, but got up and was still able to go. So I think that's obviously a great sign as well. I thought all 3 of those guys did a pretty good job today. They all had big catches. There were some drops today that Tennessee's going to want back just throughout the entire room. But overall, they came up with some nice catches too. Miles Kitselman, we're going to throw tight ends in there. He had that ridiculous one-handed catch to set up a touchdown.
Oh my, yeah, that was
inside the 10. And then he also had a touchdown of his own right on a ball that, not the worst placed ball, considering it was a very safe throw to put it where it was, but gave him the chance to, or kind of made Miles Kitselman turn around a little bit. Another nice catch there. What I look at, though, is you didn't see much behind those guys. You saw a couple snaps from Travis Smith Jr. I don't really remember seeing Rodarius Jackson. We'll have to look at the PFF snaps and see if he snuck in there at a point, and I just missed him.
I don't think he did.
Played.
I don't think so.
You didn't see anyone behind Braylon Staley in the slot. They did go to 12 personnel like we kind of suspected during the offseason of, all right, well, how do you make up for the depth? Maybe you just add another tight end on the field. Ethan Davis didn't really do much either. I think he got at least one target we were talking about earlier, but just kind of went through his hands, and he doesn't end this game with a catch at all. So when you do get to SEC play, when you do get to Georgia, I think it's fantastic that those 3 guys played well, and they're going to get the majority of snaps this season, assuming they're healthy. I'm a little surprised we didn't see a little bit more Travis Smith Jr., and I guess it's a little disappointing that none of the other tight ends besides Miles Kitselman really got in the mix in the pass game, because it doesn't have to be Ethan Davis. I thought there was a chance we'd see a good bit of Deshaun Brame after the terrific fall camp.
Jack Van Dorselaer even was getting some reps. I think maybe more. I don't remember a lot of Deshaun Brame. I could have just been not looking at the right time. But Jack Van Dorselaer being able to go in and get some reps at the end of the game, I thought was interesting.
They are kind of different in some way. Like I think they think, which he is, Jack Van Dorselaer is a better blocker.
Right, and they weren't needing to pass at that point in the game.
So I think if it was a situation where maybe it's a close game and it's the middle of the game, there's an injury, so you needed to insert one of them to really, kind of keep Miles Kitselman and Ethan Davis's impact in the pass game there. That's maybe when you do go to Deshaun Brame. But considering at that point it was get the ball on the ground, let's get out of here, I think that makes a little bit more sense that was Jack Van Dorselaer. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's a little disappointing, is just the depth that didn't show up, but at the same time we knew that, right? Like, it's not like it's the craziest thing ever out of left field that they didn't go too far deep on this depth chart. And two, you look back to 2022 and those seasons where the offense was really good. Did they get, Ramel Keaton in the mix even when Cedric Tillman was healthy? I guess a little bit. But it was they like their 3 guys and they play their 3 guys. And so I don't read too much into it as a negative. It's just a little, I guess, something to know as we go forward.
I think that's fair. And ultimately I think that, those 3 guys being banged up, not being able to go at different points during fall camp. First off, I agree with you on everything you said. And I think that, we'll see plenty of Travis Smith Jr. and Rodarius Jackson next week against ETSU, but I do kind of wonder as well if this was almost like, hey, these guys haven't been able to go much together. These 3 are going to be our guys, and we just want to force feed them reps here in this game, especially knowing that, they were going to get 40, plus, hopefully, I think that was their thought, but 40 plus attempts on the ground today, just kind of get these guys in the rhythm, just kind of get these guys on the field, and then have next week as a prime opportunity to open things up a little bit. We'll see, but overall, I do agree with you, though, but that's kind of my only, why we probably saw that many is just I think they want to get those guys comfortable as soon as possible.
Well, and I think you saw some of the remnants of having a spring transfer quarterback, because there were times where they weren't on completely different pages, but maybe they weren't on the right part of the page. Like, maybe there should be a little bit more trust on a comeback route where you can let that ball go before he actually breaks at the top and starts to come back at you. And Joey just kind of had to wait a little bit, kind of had to see the comeback before he wanted to let it rip and throw a pick if they weren't on the right page. So I think you saw some little issues like that here and there. But overall, I mean, considering what was stacked against them in terms of the timing of Joey Aguilar getting to campus, not being able to work with these receivers like you just mentioned for so much of the offseason, it looked pretty good. And that's, once again, to your point, of this is a jumping off point. This is the first of 12 regular season games, and if this is what it looks like after one, I think it gets you a little optimistic of what that could look like going forward. The caveat is, it is Syracuse. Is it a bad team? I don't think it's a bad team. Is it a good team? I don't think it's a good team. So you do have to take it what it is against the opponent in the situation, but at the same time, I do think you have to leave pretty happy about what that looked like.
Yeah, I would agree. All right, here's what we're going to do, Ryan, and I haven't even run this by you, but as I'm sort of looking at things and looking what's on our menu here, on our plate coming up, if you're listening to this, you won't know anything changed, but we're gonna go ahead and take a quick break right now.
Okay.
We've got to go meet up with our friends over at WATE and do some quick video for them. But in about 5 seconds, you'll hear my voice again, and we're gonna be right back up in the same spot. And we're gonna quickly talk about the defense to kind of wrap up this again post game one press pass podcast. So that's our thoughts on the offense. We're gonna come back on with our thoughts on the defense in about 3, 2, 1.
We're back, and Rick Butler is a huge liar because you're not hearing his voice now. This is Ryan Shumpert, and I'm jumping in. Sylvia's still here. Rick working on some other stuff. All right, pivoting to talk about the Tennessee defense, Sylvia. What were your big takeaways today on a night that, or an afternoon that the Vols definitely gave up more points than I think any of us expected?
Sure. I mean, when we got here, we did I said this at the top of the show, we did the WAT stand-up, and my first thought, really one of the only things I said was, Tennessee's got to sit back and rely on that defense, run the ball, and Syracuse isn't scoring more than 2 touchdowns. I said that all week too. I mean, clearly was not the case. They had a bad hand dealt to them in some ways with injuries. Obviously, you'd love to have David Hobbs going into things. You would love to keep Ricky Gibson fully healthy for the entire game. Nathan Robinson, who gets banged up after a really strong start, and then that's not even Aaron Carter left for a good period. So you got a bad bill of health. I thought it was interesting to see how the different position groups and different players kind of responded to that. I thought Ty Redmond came in, did a really good job in the secondary.
Totally agree.
But maybe some other spots, maybe up front, you saw that drop off a little bit more. Overall, am I going to panic over that? Am I going to completely hit the panic button about Tennessee's defense being a shell of what it was last year? No. Does it maybe hint to you that it's not as good as what it was last year? I think so. I think that was maybe the confirmation of that it's taken a step back, but it still should be one of the better units in the SEC.
See, this is just really bad for narratives in me because I could have been on here on the offensive side and I'd have been really positive. And I'm known as a negative guy, and I thought it was a worrisome display from Tennessee's defense today, at the very least. I would probably stop shy of panic, hitting the panic button, but look, I've been pounding the drum, and you've agreed with me. Tennessee's defensive tackle depth is not good.
Yeah.
And it was tested immediately. Jackson Moy goes down a few plays in. Nathan Robinson, who I did think played pretty well.
He did.
Nathan Robinson, here's what Nathan Robinson showed me. He showed me if Nathan Robinson has to play 20, 25 snaps, I feel good about it. But now he's thrust into a spot where he might have to play 40 snaps, and that's just a ton to ask out of the guy. And even he was banged up in and out a little bit in the game. And then past him, Jamal Wallace. We saw Ethan Utley more in pass rushing situations than we necessarily did just first, on stretches on the field, though he did, I think, have a drive at one point. So I'm worried there. Syracuse ran the ball way better than I expected them to at any point in this game. And it wasn't like they just gashed Tennessee, but they were able to get 4 or 5 a lot.
Yeah, I think I'm at the point where you're more worried than me, I think, about it. I'm kind of in the, keep note of it category right now.
Monitoring category.
Yeah, we got to monitor the threat here. And a lot of it is up front, and I thought the edge rushers were perfectly fine today.
I would like to see a little bit more. I thought Josephs was good. I thought Josephs was great. Josephs played like what you wanted to see.
Yes.
Ross made the great play on the jet sweep. Herring, I didn't think had a great game. We'll see how PFF grades him out. And my second thought, we were watching the game in the cornered end zone, so we wasn't always the best view.
Defense end zone missing a little bit at times.
Yeah, I thought tough day for you with Tyree West.
Yeah,
Tyree Weathersby got a lot more snaps. Tyree Weathersby got a lot more snaps. And we should note, too, Don Bailey slid inside and played some defensive tackle, which something we thought might end up happening. But I thought Tennessee struggled to get home with 4 in this game, which I think was a question I had for Tennessee's defense as a whole this season. What I do like, Edwin Spillman, I think, is going to be electric rushing the passer. I think Aaron Carter is going to be good rushing the passer. Both those guys had sacks. So I think you're going to have to see Tennessee be more aggressive with the pass rush in pass rush situations this year. than they maybe have been in the last 2 years. I would say I'm much like I don't think the pass rush had a great day, which is a funny thing to say when they had 5 sacks.
Yeah.
Which does kind of do the narrative that sacks can be a little overblown. But
Sure.
I didn't think they had a great day. I'm not overly worried about it. I thought the interior defensive line and a little bit the backup linebackers, I don't know if they're going to be able to rotate as much of the linebacker as they did today. And some of that, again, you had guys banged up. Aaron Carter missed a little bit of time in the game, came back. Ben Bolton got a lot of run. Jaden Harmon, was it Harmon or Perlotti? One of the Jadens.
It was Harmon.
I think it was Harmon as well. Got a good bit of run. I'm not sure they're going to be able to play as many as they did today. But I just as a whole, with the run defense, I would say I'll stop short of panic button, but I'm definitely more concerned about that than I am the pass rush.
Well, it felt there were shades of the 2022 teams where it
was a boomer bust
rolling.
defense.
It was awesome, and
Yep.
then that kind of fizzled out in the second half a little bit. It took the foot off the gas, but defensively, yeah, it was. Oh my God, that blitz was electric. They stunted. They did this. That was a great call from Tim Banks. They got home. Oh my God, they can't get off the field.
Yep.
And the third down conversion rate from Syracuse wasn't great. But what was it, 3 for 4 on fourth down?
I believe so.
It was not. They couldn't get off on fourth down.
There were multiple occasions, and I could be missing. I probably am missing one that went the other way for Tennessee, where it was 3rd and short, 4th and short, and Syracuse lined up and ran it and got the first down.
Yeah.
That didn't happen. Teams of Syracuse's quality would not have done that against Tennessee's defensive last year.
I think that goes back to. Obviously, James Pierce is the number one name on the defensive line, but to me, that is the defensive tackle spot where it is.
Oh, 100%.
You're missing Omar Norman Lott. You're missing Amari Thomas. You're missing
Elijah Simmons in that situation.
Elijah Simmons
Yeah.
in. I think that plays a big role in obviously stopping the run. I think that's part of the reason that maybe the run defense do as well. But at the same time, they got to the perimeter a little bit too in the run game and got to create some splash plays that way as well. So I'm still overall, maybe I'm just a little tricked from last year. Maybe last year's more of a flash in the pan in some ways.
Sylvia just got a notification. He's got the ESPN baseball thing. Sylvia's a Red Sox fan. And you know how you can get the updates, and I just saw the Pirates are up 9-3.
The look on your face was incredible.
I saw it at first, and I thought, surely that's 3-0. I didn't know the Pirates were capable of scoring 9 runs.
It was pure shock on your face.
I was like, surely that's a 0. I squint. That's a 9. Okay, sorry.
As far as the Tennessee defense goes, maybe I am a little tricked from last year. Maybe that set my expectations a little too high. But I'll still err on the side of this being one of the better units in the SEC overall than one of the worst ones.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree with that. And look, to their defense, David Hobbs out. Jackson Way again got hurt 5 plays into this game.
Yeah,
those things hurt. On the other side, the other spot you would point to maybe Tennessee being a little bit thin is corner. A lot again, very much because Jermon McCoy is out. Boo Carter plays 3 or 4 drives today, I think.
That's probably about the number.
A good bit, but Jalen McMurray running more inside than outside. I thought the corners stepped up and played great. Colton Hood was great. He was fantastic. I think you could argue that he was the biggest win from this game for Tennessee, or the biggest positive you leave.
Yeah.
He looked fantastic. Ricky Gibson goes down, which is what pushed this the depth. And I thought Ty Redmond, he wasn't stellar. He gave up some passes. He gave up some receptions, but he also had a number of bat downs. He also had good coverage on a number of plays. You can see why they're really high on him. And it makes it, as they wait for Jermon McCoy to get back on the field, it makes it feel all the more sustainable that you have him as a solid third option, and then as Boo Carter continues to play more and more, you can also slide McMurray out.
I think the secondary I thought was mostly, I guess safety would be the biggest question. It wasn't like the safeties did anything wrong.
The safeties were Tennessee safeties today. They didn't make a whole lot of plays. Yeah. You didn't notice them giving up busted assignments.
Yes. I don't want to dog on them because they didn't mess up. They just weren't like an X factor, I guess, would be the way to put it. So I guess that would be maybe the quote unquote weakest link of the secondary, but still at the same time, if that's what you're getting out of your safeties, that's perfectly fine. I think. I thought Idris Farouk was perfectly fine.
Yeah, he was around the ball and some throws.
Was perfectly fine. Obviously, Andre Turrentine was, he's been there, done that. His second year as a starter, been on the team for a handful of years now, so you kind of know what to expect from him. The corner play I thought was very strong, and then I thought Jalen McMurray had a really good game as well. Obviously, he had the highlight plays of tipping the pass and getting after the quarterback and doing those different types of things, but just overall, I thought I think you have to be pretty happy with what you have at Jalen McMurray, given we'll see exactly what Boo Carter's status looks like going forward, just in terms of how much he actually is playing at star, if he can take over that starting position, all those different. I think you have to be pretty happy with the secondary.
And look, Boo Carter, really bad missed sack on a 4th down play.
Yes.
I thought other than that, he played pretty well while he was out there, had good coverage on a deep ball. But I don't think Tennessee has a huge step back from Boo Carter to Jalen McMurray defensively.
No, and that was the same take that I had earlier in the offseason too, where if there was a world where Boo Carter wasn't on the team, I think you would have maybe missed him more as a punt returner, and it was exactly what you'd expected today, where you threw out DeJuan Morris and Braylon Staley, and they just threw out fair catches and said, let's get the offense on the field. If Boo Carter's back there's at least one that I can think of. I think
Morris.
Yeah, DeJuan, where it was like
fair caught it. He didn't need to.
Probably a return right there.
Yeah.
And if it's someone with dynamic with the ball in their hands like a Boo Carter is, like that's potentially a massive flip of the field. So I think you're already missing him in that regard as a punt return. How much that actually will impact a game-by-game basis, I don't know. But as far as defensive backs go, they have enough depth there that I would agree. It's nice to have him, but it's not the end of the world if he isn't able to go.
No, not the end of the world at all. Again, I think just final takeaways on the defense, and if you have anything just on the game on the whole, you guys didn't hit on offense. I thought Colton Hood was, again, we noted a second ago, I thought he was really, really good. He was impressive, and then, I don't know, the thing I think maybe with the defensive line, defensive tackle that worries me, maybe I'd feel different if it was Mississippi State in 2 weeks. It's Georgia in 2 weeks in a game Tennessee's going to need to be able to hold steady on the defensive line of scrimmage against one of the best offensive lines in the SEC.
To me, it's almost, though, like, I don't know, we'll see what Georgia looks like in these first couple of weeks before Tennessee actually plays them.
They play nobody's thing. They rolled over the Thundering Herd today, and I think they have another bye game next week.
It's still, to me, just – I'm not going to Sharpie it in. I'm not even going to –
You're not expecting a win.
I'm just far from expecting a win still. So
no doubt.
While that, that certainly would hurt you in that game. I think it is, hey, let's get the guys ready to go for Oklahoma and for, Florida and some of the games that maybe you would think would be a little more manageable for. And if they don't look great against Georgia and you can kind of mark it up to growing pains, then whatever. Because, in this age of college, you're trying to win 10 games.
Yep.
And that's all it's down to. And the schedule Tennessee has, I'm still not predicting them to win 10 games, but the schedule they have, it sets up to give you a shot to win 10 games towards the end of the year, even if you don't perform against Georgia.
You got anything else?
I don't think so. Quick special teams shout-outs, I guess. Max Gilbert did his job. They all did their job. Jackson Ross was fantastic, and you've seen a shaky debut from him in the past. So.
True.
Good for him to hit the ground running, but
Tuberville kicked it through the end zone.
Tuberville did it, kicked through the end zone. Bennett Brady put the ball where it needs to be. Jackson Ross held the ball where it needs to be overall. You didn't ask too much of them, but that was good stuff from the specialists, and the Pirates just scored a 10th run.
One offensive takeaway I have, and I hit it on our on-field thing, I don't know how much y'all got into it, but the offense looked different. Not 180, but it had a different flavor to it.
It was almost 180, though, at times.
At times it was 180.
It was. I'll say this. I expected next to no. I thought it was almost going to be like a vanilla offense in terms of tempo. They got on the ball and snapped it pretty quickly.
And weirdly, I think that their tempo was the best when they weren't doing the wide splits.
That was also I'm glad you said that, because that was something that jumped out to me during the game too, where I'm like, that he is at the hashes. It's not even like, just a couple steps in. No, they're bringing them in, and I think it worked out in the past.
We saw pistol stuff.
Saw some pistol stuff.
They got some quick stuff over the middle, bringing them in over to hashes on some RPO stuff that worked well.
It felt like it made a big difference. It felt like the run game didn't take too much of a drop-off from bringing those guys a little bit closer. You're still not really able to stack the box against that to a certain degree. I thought that worked very well, and I also liked how they used the running backs in a few different ways as well. Obviously, the Star Thomas one's going to stand out. That's kind of a broken play that they make a good play on. But also just in general, getting the ball to the running backs in different ways, I thought was good. I think we did a whole segment on it offensively. I think you have to be pretty happy with the offense, relatively happy with the defense, and you'll see where you're at going into Georgia after a bye game.
Yep, that's exactly right. Offensive line was fantastic today is one other thing I'll add on the offensive section. But for Rick Butler, Ryan Sylvia, and myself, Ryan Shumpert, it's been the RTI Press Pass. We'll come at you later in the week, probably with – won't be too much ETSU preview this week, so it'll probably be a little bit more thoughts from this game. A lot of injuries for Tennessee today, so we'll see how much of an update Josh Heupel gives us on
this
that
is one
stuff.
That sucks. It's not an SEC game.
We would like this to be an SEC game with the injury report. So with all that, thanks for listening to RTI Press Pass, and we'll be back for the next one.